You know, folks, they say behind every great man is a kick-ass woman. I may have improvised that a little bit, cancel me baby style, but you get the gist. And today I am in this musical fortress, as you can see, with two kick-ass women behind a name you may have heard of, Trace Adkins, huge country superstar. So today I am this is like really badass because we're in Nashville. We have the generations of women here. We have Trace's ex-partner. You really discovered him. You now have your own music talent management business. Rhonda Forlaw Adkins here and Trace's daughter, Mackenzie. So, and you're a Gen Zer, right?
Yeah, kind of. 25. I'm 25.
Okay. So it's actually, I'm millennial. It's cool. We have like the generation. Yes.
Going on
and we got it going on today. So, and Rhonda's not like there are a lot of people who have an eye and a knack for talent, but Rhonda here has been in the business for over 30 years. You're the Starchitect. So we have the Starchitect and the celebrity whisperer today. Ladies, we have a lot to talk about.
We sure do.
We have a lot to talk about. Well, first of all, thank you for welcoming me into your gorgeous place here.
Of course, we're glad to have you.
Thank you so much. And to really just get the vibe of all of this to people watching and listening, obviously a hot button topic in country right now is women making their way in and having power. Now, you're sort of seeing it with fresh eyes because, you're so young. You've been in this business. You helped basically discover Trace when he was an up-and-coming talent here in town.
Playing in a no place.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, before we get into that, when it comes to women having power in country music, what you've seen over the last 3 decades, from a bird's eye kind of view, what's changed? How do you see it? Do we have a ways to go? Is it not as bad as the media makes it out, i.e. women have no power? I mean, look what you've built, right? It's amazing.
I think women have always had power. It just decides how you want to use it. If you're going to work hard and understand your craft and you just play better with everyone, it doesn't really matter, man or woman. I know a lot of people feel that way. And when I came to town in 1989, it was quite a different scene than it is now. But
how so?
Women were not, there were no women running anything, really. I mean, there was, Connie Bradley was at ASCAP. Frances Preston was at BMI. There were some women, big power players, there were.
Right.
But you didn't see a woman running a record label. I can't think of a woman manager. Whereas now, some of the hottest acts in country music have women managers. Back then, they didn't. It was more, we were a little bit more backseat, but I've always had a little bit of a big mouth. So, I just kind of stated my opinion, but in a nice, kind way. And I think that's how you get to the top, That's my style.
And now when you see Mackenzie and her generation coming up, is it all that different? It is or it isn't?
I think it's different because I think women are more accepted now than they were back then. I think before it was more like, well, and I'm like, yeah, excuse me?
Right.
But I'm competitive, so
I love that.
I think that's why that I guess the word that a lot of people use now is manifest. I manifested it to be better, but I did. I was just like, why can't I do this?
Right.
Why not? That's always been my way of thinking.
Yes.
Why not?
I agree. And I always, I take issue because I feel, no shade, but I feel like the Gen Zers harp on the negative. Like, women are suppressed, women are put down, women, and I always look at it the same way as you, which is, look, we haven't perhaps been able to climb the ranks as men as fast as them in the past, but we have our own power that they can't ever have. That's and right. We're gaining even more and more and more. Let's not knock how far we've come and where we're going. Now, from your vantage point, you're like between those two worlds, because I'm sure you see that all the time from your generation. However, you have this, kick-ass role model. So how do you see it when you hear all the time, like, women, there aren't enough, voices or powerhouses? When the way I see it, it's the same as you. It's like, we're killing it. Like, let's ride that train versus harp on the past, right?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that there's a lot more women that feel like they can go out and kind of like run shit and do things now than they're used to, from what I understand. But I also think that I don't think it has to be something that's like I don't really think about it, honestly. I really don't think about it.
No, I agree. It's like
is that bad?
No, it's so many, but it permeates into so many issues. I almost feel like making it more of a thing makes it a thing.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, just let us like crush it. It almost like puts it in our heads that we're down. Right. And that's why I love your story, because it's like, I was in this town, I had a big mouth, and I did my shit, period.
Right. Oh, I made people mad, like men mad, because I would go against like what they thought or whatever. But when I was at Arista Records for 8 years, I think maybe 9 or 10 years total, but 8 years paid. And then when I left that job and put the team together around Trace and worked with Trace, no one ever thought that I would be his manager. Like, even though I did all the work to do everything, it was like, well, you're going to hire a manager. And I actually was talked to by people, which I won't name names, but other celebrity wives that told me, you can't be his manager. You're either going to be the wife or you're going to be the manager. You can't be both.
Oh, hell no.
But back then,
she's like,
but back then it was like if I did that, it could hurt Trace's career. So I became a member of the team, but I was literally a member of the team. I sat around the tables, we came up with the ideas, we brainstormed all that stuff, but I was behind the scenes member of the team. Like, everyone knew that I was, because I'd worked for Arista for so long. Mm-hmm. But I think now, if the time was now and I was Mackenzie's age and I did everything I'd done for Trace, then I would have just, she's a manager. So I do think that that's different from then till now.
Sure.
It wasn't even thought about, but
that's interesting.
But I was definitely going to be working for him or with him. Let me take that back. With him.
Right.
And we had that agreement from the beginning that we were a team.
So you're so hysterical, because I'm not going to lie, even coming into this interview, I thought, and this is something I want to pick both of your brains on, right? How much do you own, being tied to Trace Adkins, obviously your father, your ex-partner, versus how much is it like a stubborn, like, no, I'm going to carve my own, step out of that shadow, so to speak. I'm going to carve my own path. I'm going to do my own thing. Mackenzie's like nodding.
This is interesting.
And yes, go ahead.
I think this is just my take on it, at least. I think Mom is you're very proud of everything that you did and everything that you built and that you worked on. You still say all the time that his voice is the most amazing voice in country that you've ever heard.
Yeah,
and
I totally believe in him.
Yeah, exactly.
Professional.
Which is interesting. which
is we're gonna talk about your wall because it's iconic.
Well, which is interesting because for me, I mean, I tell Mom this all the time. I boycotted country music for like the first 20 years of my life
because of that. Because you're like, I'm so stubborn, so I could see myself.
I literally, we would be going to CMA Fest, and I was like, and this is gonna sound a little bratty, but I was like, I wish I was at Bonnaroo, like being 10, 12, 13 years old.
It's like the chip on your shoulder, because it's like,
you better be proud of country music, because it's what's feeding you and it's what put the clothes on your back. So, buckle up and we're going, and smile.
And I grew to appreciate it, of course. Like, I grew to appreciate everything. Yeah. And now I like country music, and I can appreciate it so much more. But I think it was just one of those things where, and growing up, I mean, this is going to get to the nepotism thing, so we can probably skip to that later, but I just feel like growing up, even in elementary school, kids wanted to be my friend, and it was this huge, you never know.
Fake, I'm sure.
Yeah, and especially in Nashville. I think if I was somewhere else, it might not have been that big of a deal.
So
but because I was here, it was just, And I was just like, it's just my dad. Like, why is everyone? It was a huge chip on my shoulder.
I'm sure you get that still.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
In Nashville, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't tell people, which it sounds like, saying it out loud, it sounds ridiculous because I'm like, my dad's, it's just my dad. Like, I'm not, it's not this big of a deal that everyone's making it out to be. And I think that's why I was so like boycotty for that long,
so funny.
because it was just,
Yeah, but it was a real thing. It's a real thing. Like, how do you really know that someone wants to like you for you, or they want to like you for who they think you are, or what they think your life is,
and can get from you?
Yes.
And it's so funny because I feel like somehow on Cancel Me Baby, it's like the rite of passage with Nepo babies. Like, I had Val Kilmer's son Jack on. I had Brandon Jenner on. It's the funniest thing. I'm like, they just like come through my show, and here they are. But it's really interesting, and it's this really interesting dichotomy because I have a foot in both worlds. Like, I can totally see your point of view. And again, it's like I try to put myself in your shoes. It's like, because I am stubborn, like being like, no, like I'm going to carve my own path, or owning it and being like, hell yeah, I'm going to get in front of people. My parents are in retail. Like, you guys you're doing the thing out there in retail. But the other end of it, of like getting in front of people and into doors that others wouldn't. And how do you walk that line of what you said of like owning it and being like, I'm going to take advantage, and also what you said, like not being a brat?
I think I own it a lot more now, especially being in the music business and talking to so many people all the time about things. I'm very fortunate to have had the experiences that I had.
Sure.
And I really didn't understand that. Like, I have been in incredible areas. I've been backstage at so many different things. I've met so many people. Like, I'm fortunate that I don't really get starstruck, so I can work with a lot of people that I'm not going to freak out over. And I think that it's really interesting because I didn't understand that. And so I definitely own it a lot more now than I used to. Like, I'm not bratty about it anymore, guys, I promise.
What's kind of funny is your version of it is like the every teenage, but like on another, like I'm thinking about it, right? And it's like, even when I was young, you're talking about your teenage years, like, oh, I wish I was at Bonnaroo, like the things I'd be a brat about with my parents, like just let me out through curfew, like whatever. And now it's like you grow to accept it, and it's like it's a different version, but it's hysterical because it's like two sides of the same coin.
And I think I still, like, I'm still a little both sides. Like,
that's fun.
I'm gonna own it. I love having all those experiences, and I'll talk to people about it. And I actually ask to go to events with my dad now. Like, I actually want to go on set for his shows and stuff. Like, that's what I do. Like, I want to be in the industry. I want to learn. I want to do things. I want to go with him to shows. And it's gotten to the point now where he's like, why do you keep asking me to come to all this stuff?
But I can attest, because you've done a good job, because she's a hard worker. I've seen it. Before we get to your iconic before and after Trace wall, as soon as I walk in, Rhonda's like, okay, so this is the Trace wall. This is life. It's like BT and AT, like before Trace and after Trace.
Yeah.
I'm so curious what you ladies think, because this got so much heat. When Kim Kardashian, similar thing, right? Already kind of had the famous name, and now some of the most famous people have built an empire. I tip my hats to them, because I think, love it or hate it, I think what they've done is impressive. Now, when Kim said, get off your ass and work, nobody wants to work, everybody lost their minds. And I defended her. I was like, she's right. Nobody does want to work.
I completely agree.
So because people were like, oh, easy for you to say, your dad was O.J. Simpson's lawyer. You had a sex tape, this, that. And I'm like, she's still right. Coming from, you have that parallel background. You said there's validity in that.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Nobody wants to work.
No, totally. That's the problem I've had with my company.
Even with my show.
Yeah.
These kids, they don't want to do any. I'm like,
I call them silver platter artists. They want it hand. Here you go. Here's your career. It's like, no, you have to put in the work. You have to do social media, even though maybe none of us want to. You have to practice. You have to hustle,
With that being said, how do you both feel? Because when I talked to Jack Kilmer about the nepotism thing, he made a good point, which is it's different now than it was maybe when my dad was coming up, and that now everyone's famous, like the TikTok and the this and the that. When it comes to country music, it's so, and anything in entertainment, right? I saw it on the red carpet for years. back then when Trace was coming up, it was a different kind of getting your foot in the door because the gatekeepers, how do people see you? Now everybody sees you. So it's a different kind of hustle of how do you break through all that noise. Back then it was how do I break through period and get in the room.
Right.
And there's a chip on shoulders, even mine, right? Because of TikTok and these different avenues of people, let's just call it how it is, who aren't talent making it, who aren't gifted or talented, who are making it.
The algorithm made them.
Well, how do you see that and navigate that even in your business?
Well, I think that all the social media stuff is a problem.
Period.
That's the interview.
I think it's a problem personally for children, like because I have 3 kids, right? I see them much more attached to their phone and staring at their phone and not looking at people in the eye. All the things that you hear a lot of people say.
Yes.
They get more caught up in what is my world going to look like? Me too. What is my website going to look like? What is my Instagram going to look like? Is this, we need to get the shot. Like you're not living in the moment. You're living and capturing the moment so you can post it so everyone can think you're cool or that you're successful or whatever. Can't we just be? I just want to be. It's sad to me. I'm so lucky that, I'm 59 years old, that I got to grow up when I grew up, that I could actually live. I feel like people aren't living now.
No, well,
they're living for their phone.
Not to take a turn for the dark, but like the mental repercussions.
And on it, and all that.
It's
stuff.
terrible. And no. And we're talking about, women today and the generational gaps. Like, I don't know if you saw this. There was a new study how 1 in 3 teenage girls have been suicidal, a 60% increase from even the last year. Like, it's just crazy. But on a talent level, I see the clash of the two worlds. And I will say, Nashville is obsessed with TikTok. Every meeting I take with a manager, they're obsessed. I've never seen a city like it.
What are they going to do?
Right.
What are they going to do if TikTok goes away or Instagram goes away? You built your whole life on that platform and poof, it's gone.
They're obsessed. But what's so interesting.
I mean, it's crazy.
No, exactly. And what's so interesting is I'll hear this feedback even with my own platform all day long from people here. However, and it's kind of sad, but there's something about that grit and that hustle. Like I'll go on to Broadway or I'll go to the local or I'll go to any of these venues and I'll see these musicians and I'm thinking to myself, they probably have 3 side jobs, a wife, and they're doing this in the hopes of a dime a dozen to break through. And there's something about that. People call me old school, but there's something about that grit, I think. And it's interesting here because it's like you're watching them both play out simultaneously.
Right. I think social media has some good sides to it. Like you can see more people than you ever could see before. But then I think the old way of artists getting broke also was good because they got rid of a lot of the clutter.
Yes.
And now there's so many different places to look. I mean,
too much.
How many acts maybe would we not have ever seen? Like, would Fleetwood Mac just have been lost on TikTok because they didn't want to do social media as much and we couldn't have heard all that great music because they didn't want to go live on TikTok 3 times a day and post on Instagram, whatever, and all that stuff you got to do that you're more interested in doing all that than practicing because you got to practice. You got to practice your craft if you're going to be awesome.
Yep. I'm so glad that you brought up Fleetwood because Stevie Nicks is my hero. And it reminds me of you ladies because I'll always say how Stevie Nicks is like my feminist icon because here she is singing, like talking shit on Lindsey Buckingham while he's playing guitar behind her, like iconic. I saw her at the Forum when I was in LA. Literally, I'm in the nosebleeds and they come out playing The Chain and I literally am like melting down. Like, it's fine. Yeah. So
I wore the cassette out. Had to get another cassette.
Exactly. Icon. So going off of that, right? Like I had alluded to, your before... which side is which now?
The right side is me when I first moved to town. It's kind of like a scrapbook of my life.
Yes.
The right side when you're walking down the hall is when I first moved to town, and I was so blessed that I got to be around the Highwaymen and Randy Travis and get the job at Arista Records and go from marketing to publicity and work with Tim Dubois and all the people at Arista. We just, that I got to work with Brooks and Dunn and Alan Jackson and Diamond Rio and Black Hawk and Leroy Purnell and all these unbelievable Pam Tillis, Michelle Wright, so many great talents. And
like,
then,
no big deal.
Then discovered Trace at the Marriott Hotel and then hired the team around him and work with him for 20 years. And
Mm-hmm.
now we're still going through our crazy divorce, even though a lot of people don't realize that. I'm still not officially divorced.
I think that's how you said it with the wall. You're like, before, after, and partnership, and like the crazy divorce. Like it's all in these walls, but it's a beautiful array that you have here. And it's really interesting because, again, it's like I feel like you have your feet in both worlds, both the before and after, whether it be Trace, whether it be the context of country music. I mean, all these iconic names. Something else that is such a hot button, I hear it time and time again, right, being in the mainstream media, is country music is the old white men's game. Country music is the old white men's game. We hear it over and over and over. As someone who discovered Trace, as someone who, again, he's this icon in country music, is his daughter, when you hear that, what's your immediate reaction? Is it an overreaction? Is it like, oh, that's awkward because that is like my family? Like, what does it make you feel? Because I hear it all the time.
Yeah. I think a lot of people say that all the time. I think it can be true in some circles, but it depends on how you want to carry yourself. If you want to bow down to all the men and say it's a white man's world or whatever, then that's your world, but it's not mine. You can say that about any industry. You can say I've worked in material handling before I got into country music, lift trucks, conveyor belts, talk about a man's world. I was with all men all the time. I was very happy to get down here to Nashville and be around a lot of women. So, not that I don't love men, but anyway, right. But I think life is what you make it, what you choose to make it. You're either gonna, I could sit back and curl up and go, oh, my marriage fell apart and now I'm a nobody and nothing's gonna work right and I'm mad that I put on this weight because of whatever reason. But I've got to decide, how am I going to change my world and me, because at the end of the day, I'm responsible for me and what's around me.
We're starting, by the way, as soon as we wrap this, with you're going to join on board with Operation Sex Goddess Body. We talked about this, so that's
look at this. I want this.
But and I want you to thank you so much. I filled her in, you guys, before this. Thank you. I saw you nodding like crazy when I brought that up, and I just want to go quickly before I get your input. I love what you said because you're right. It permeates into any business, especially entertainment and particularly artists. And they'll say, I have all these misogynists in social media and all this and all that. And it breaks my heart because it makes me sad for them, number one. But number two, I don't experience it. And I think it's to what you're saying. It's with anything. Like, I think ultimately you dictate how people in your orbit are going to treat you. Yeah. So it's what you make of it. It's kind of like what you said. If you go into it with this mentality of like, oh, they're running the show and I'm a nobody, you're going to go in with that energy then. Yeah. And that's what I think.
You're really whoever you are. Let's say you're a man, you're running a company and you're really smart and you're great at it. Then I want to become friends with you. Can you help me? I want to learn what you know. And maybe I can help you. Maybe I can help you with what I know. I mean, a lot of men like women, so
I was about
play
to say, I was about to say, I mean, I personally, like, coming from a generational standpoint, I guess, but I personally surround myself with a lot of women in general. I mean, all of our interns at the company are women, and just happen to be that way. But true, you're right. Sorry, Jamie.
Jamie, shout out to you.
But, I think it can be what you make it. I mean, I'm on the officer board of the Women Music Business Association. It's like 200 women surrounding me all the time. Like, you don't have to just be around men all the time if that's not what you want, I guess. Yeah. And I don't know, this whole thing about it's a man's world, whatever. I don't know. I feel like that's so negative. Okay, fine. Yeah. Like,
I'm coming in.
And you honestly.
Pages made.
Yeah, and this is gonna sound a little ridiculous. You have to use your sexuality to your advantage because all these old white men go googly-eyed over me when I walk in a room. I'm sorry.
Why are you sorry? Enter Operation Sex Goddess Body.
Exactly. Like, not even
turn to much. Play to your strengths, like what you said.
No, exactly. It's not even sorry. Like, I'm apologizing for that, but just sorry in the sense of like, sorry no one's brought that up before, but it's true. I mean, you use that to your advantage. Right. They love you. But great. Also, they can love you for being smart and intelligent and good at your job.
And if they cross the line, you put them in their place.
Exactly.
Period. Period. I say it all the time. And it's that thing where it's use it to your advantage, because you're right, they'll go googly. I was talking on my show the other day about, I didn't know this with the whole Pam Anderson, the new documentary and all this, how back in the day she had a meeting with Putin about like negotiating animal rights. And I'm like, could you imagine Putin? He probably was like, whatever you say. And then when you're smart, yeah, right. And then when you're smart, like both of you ladies are on top of it, they lose their minds. And you can have them like putty. And that's what I want to empower women with. And what's so sad to me is on both sides politically, they downplay this in one way or the other, right? I feel like on the far right side, it's like, that's bad. We can't have lust. You shouldn't be sexual. Be the nice, put together woman who's making pie for her man. On the left, you're perpetually a Me Too victim who has no strength and who's just, like I said, a victim of a misogynistic society. And the truth is somewhere in the middle, basically, what we're saying.
Right, that's right. You need to study your craft, whatever it is. You need to be, if you want to compete, I don't care if you're competing with other men, you're competing for other women. You want to be the best, then you better study.
Yes.
Whatever it is. And then you can rise to the top. But I just don't believe in going into things negatively. I'm going to be, as positive as possible. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to make friends with everybody that I can and surround myself with smarter people than me, because I have a lot to learn.
I always love the example of Cleopatra. It's like the bitch started like a world war, like the beauty and the braids, like all of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like play to that. And so, Mackenzie, when you hear whether it be your generation or even after you, just complaining nonstop, like even my generation, right? Like even like Maren Morris with the faux standing up to the CMAs, this whole boycotting, it's like do it or don't, right? There's always complaining. It's like, how do you see it? Is it just like, really, like, knock it off, everyone?
I think it's, it's very knock it off. It's very, it comes off a little, like it's just an excuse, honestly. Like, unless
it's a cop-out.
Exactly. Unless it's you've genuinely been hurt or something. Yeah, I don't know all of her arguments.
Sure.
I don't know the whole Maren thing actually at all. I probably should read up on that. But in the sense of people complaining in general about it being a man's world and all that, just going back to that.
Right.
It sounds a little like an excuse. Like if you I don't know, I don't love it.
Like you're talking about Maren, I'm really opinionated about something. If I am going to a concert to be entertained, I don't want to hear about your political stance. I could care less. I want to hear you sing, and I want to hear the songs, and I want to have fun, and I want to be escape, because I have best friends that are as far liberal as they can be. I have best and gay, and I have best friends that are conservative and Bible thumpers.
Yes, ditto.
Because I think I can learn from everyone. I mean, and I'm by far not perfect. But if I'm going to a concert or I'm going to a movie, I want to escape from life. That's what entertainment is to me.
What's so funny is I just did a solo episode on this, and I brought up 3 examples in pop culture. One was like a Netflix movie. One was the Pam Anderson documentary. One was another thing. And the whole essence of the episode is what you're saying. It's like we have made things so convoluted that we literally can't even be entertained, because in our minds, we're like, hold on. Is this a social message? Should I be enjoying this? Should I be offended? Like, we've confused it so much. I'm like, make entertainment entertaining again, please. Like,
well, we live with my mom. This is my mom's house. She's 94 years old.
Okay.
So, and she's extremely conservative. And so Fox News, she's hard of hearing. Fox News is on 24/7 in this house, okay? And you can hear it practically down here. It's true. It's true. Okay?
Through the whole neighborhood.
Through the whole house, all right? Then I'm the person on my phone, I get alerts from CNN and Fox. I think it's funny to see how opposite they are from each other. I think it's funny.
Oh, it's like a real life satire. It's hysterical.
It's just like, how can you spin it? I majored in journalism, so I like to see the headlines.
But the spirit of Laura Ingraham is in this house,
yeah. Yeah. All of them, But what I heard last night was this comedian that was on one of their shows. I don't remember who it was, but he was saying how comedy can't be comedy anymore 100%. Because they're getting hit for everything being, a no-no or politically incorrect or whatever.
Of course.
And that's so sad. It's like people are afraid to even open their mouths, and that's frightening.
And when it comes to country music, so I'm from New England, lived in LA, so this is all relatively new to me. I'm kind of seeing it with fresh eyes. And because the left extreme has this chokehold on culture and what you're saying, it's like the gateway of what is determining arbitrarily what is and isn't allowed. Number one, you have this umbrella stigma that everybody in country music is this, MAGA, crazy, off the rails, right wing, it's like this stigma.
Oh, so not true.
That's what I was going to say. I find time and time again, I'll be having conversations with people like you ladies, and it's almost like it's even what you just said. I have friends who are gay. I have this, and they're always in the position to defend themselves.
Yeah.
But you never get that on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I don't like. It's like, why do you have to defend as if you're in the clear, right? I'm not this. I have a gay friend. I'm not. It's just not good.
I just am. I mean, if you're going to like me, that's okay. If you're not going to like me, okay. I don't know why you don't like me, but I'm just going to, she's heard this since she was little. I'm going to like people for their heart, and I'm going to practice the golden rule. And that's it. Life is simple.
How do you see it? And I'm going to pivot this to you and where you see it going even with the generation after you. From, again, someone who's worked with so many iconic people over 30 years to now seeing this climate in this sense of what it is now. Are you like, what's happening?
Yes, I'm like, what's happening? The people that I worked with when I first moved to town, Waylon and Johnny and Randy Travis and even Alan Jackson, Ronnie Dunn, Kix Brooks, all those guys, they worked their butts off. I mean, they were doing interviews all day long. They were on radio tours. They were writing songs. They were rehearsing. They were on the road going from point A to point B. And now what I'm seeing is all these kids going, you mean I have to do TikTok once a day and post on Instagram, and you want me to practice? I'm already great.
Oh, hell.
Like, excuse me?
Well, first of all, I didn't even need my notes because this was such an organic, beautiful conversation. But I literally have in here difference now and then with ego, entitlement, and TikTok. So you literally took the words out of my mouth.
It's crazy, and I don't understand it. And it actually scares me a little bit because that people think that they don't have to work to get where they are. I mean, everybody needs to, don't expect handouts. If you can't afford to do what you do, then do what I did. I worked at McDonald's. I worked at Child World. I did a bunch of different jobs so I could go to where I wanted to go.
Girl, I'm still doing them behind the scenes. Like my listeners don't even know. Like, it is nonstop.
Yeah, the word is side hustle.
Side hustle.
It goes back to the Kim thing too. Like, everyone was so mad at her for that, but it's true.
Oh, it's
like,
100% true.
I mean, her dad was OJ's lawyer, and all of her sisters are famous too. But she has to work just as much as everybody else does. Like, if it's this whole, going back to the Nepo conversation, it's like, if it's this thing of they didn't have to work to get where they are. I should probably be, a country music star by now.
I was going to say, right, everyone would do it. Like, right.
To have a famous parent because they expect you to be able to sing, or they expect you to be able to act or do whatever. But, I mean, don't you think family-run business, actors' families and musicians' families, it's a family-run business. And a lot of family-run businesses pass help down to their children. Look at the local tire store,
right.
Whatever the tire store is, they're going to train their kids to be able to work at the store, right? And then they're going to eventually want to hand the store down to their kids to run it. Isn't that kind of what everybody's doing? If you're a good parent, you want to help your children, but I think you should work to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think you should get handouts.
Exactly. Going back to what you talked about when you worked with your artists, perhaps on their come-ups, doing all of these interviews and all this, there's the element that we're talking about, which is now it's like, why do I even have to do that, right? The entitlement. But even taking it a step further, I always miss and reminisce, I call it the Wild West, even the MTV days, the stuff you would see at the award shows and people going off the rails. And now everyone, like you said, is afraid to do everything. But if you acknowledge that, it's almost like you're ignorant because we need all these things. Now, we can acknowledge perhaps, yes, some of it needed to be aired out and out there. But let's also call it how it is. In so many ways, I feel like it's now the no fun club. It's what you said. It's entertainment can't even be fun. Mm-hmm. So when you think about your clients, now and then, even in interviews, right? Even then, it's they could say whatever. Now, I even just recently had an interview with Blake Shelton, and I talked to him. It was like vanilla at best. Nothing got crazy. I was talking to him about this clash in country music and this divide, and his PR, their heads were like, what? Like brought to another dimension.
Yeah.
You know, how do you see it in that regard, and how do you advise your artists? Are you like, just be honest? Do you advise them like, you know what, don't go there, it's not worth it? And again, is that sad to you that back then it's like it had more of a luster and a fun and a free element, I think, to it?
Well,
right?
I think some of the best advice I received was from Charlie Daniels. She's heard this before, at the Opry with Trace. And we were worried about that very thing. Back in,
oh, no kidding.
That would have been, let's see, let me think. That would have been like 1996, 1997. We were worried because Trace was conservative, you know, and Charlie Daniels is a very conservative Christian. And we're like, how did you handle that? You know, like I had been a publicist forever, but I kind of wanted to get Charlie's take on it. He's older, you know, statesman person. And he's like, here's how I look at it. You know, there's 300 million people live in the United States. And there's, you know, half the country's Republican, half is Democrat. So if you're just you and you're real and you're honest and you get half the country to like you, is that enough money for you? Mm-hmm. And I sat back and went, wow. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, just be you, be honest, be kind. That was his message. And I've kept that forever.
It also really fascinates me how, because coming out of Hollywood, it almost felt like they had this, and I'm sure you have experienced this kind of holier than thou, like country music is like the little baby sister to Hollywood, right? Like that idea. And it's so fascinating to me, like time and time again, how you see even what happened with Morgan Wallen, right? Which I think that whole thing was ridiculous, but how you see him going to number one on the charts. I don't know, like this was news to me. You would think the number one sport in this country was football, the NFL. It's NASCAR. And it's like that same thing with country. It's like, right?
500 last week.
But if you listen to the media, you would never think that. So it's like, where's the lie?
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah, I mean, Morgan having the number one album on Billboard for the entire year. And then you watch the Grammys and there's like one table of country people.
Exactly.
It's pretty crazy.
Well, and the whole Morgan thing, I think what's sad about the news in general is you don't get the truth. Like, we know the truth about that story. You know, we had an intern actually that was there that night. We know total truth about that story. And what came out about that story isn't the truth.
I'm not even surprised.
You know, his best friend is black. So what was going on between the two of them, it's really sad that someone who lived across the street captured that. But perhaps maybe if they were as wild and rowdy as what it seemed that they were, they should have been living out in the middle of 50 acres and being wild and rowdy and not waking up all your neighbors. Because, you know, you're going to wake up people that are going to be a little grumpy. But, you know, over and over again. But I think what's really sad is when a story goes out there, and it's kind of like the telephone game when we were little, you know, and you're all in a circle and you're telling a secret to one person, a secret, and by the time it gets to the news, you don't even have the truth anymore. I miss that.
It doesn't even have to go that far. That's the sad part. Yeah. And I know because I've been in it. Like, it literally doesn't even have to go through this or this or this. It literally can be one story and an editor decides, and that's what it is. And the thing that's so wild to me is I sat down with somebody, a big executive at a big platform here in Nashville, not too long ago. And they said to me, they didn't want to have Morgan on their platform for an interview because it would risk their reputation. And I'm thinking, how stupid are you people? First of all, everybody would listen to that.
Yeah.
How dumb is that? Like,
number one's, I mean, oh my God.
Or even to have him like air out his side. Like,
you know,
stupid.
The whole black and white thing. I'm going to love you for you. I'm not going to love you for the color of your skin. I'm not going to dislike you for the color of your skin. People are saying I'm rare, but yet all the people I know from all walks of life think like me. So how am I so rare? Yeah. So I feel like they're trying to create a new civil war.
Yes, 100.
And it's not that. I mean, her best friend growing up, our next door neighbors were black.
Shout out to Jasmine.
Jasmine for the win.
But I wouldn't have even. I didn't love them because they were black. I loved them because they were nice people. So what's wrong? Why can't we all just? Right. I don't know. People look at me like I have three heads when I say things like that, and that's okay.
It's similar to the women thing. It's like if we put it in people's heads. So I'll tell you again. I grew up in very liberal, right? New York, LA, these sort of cities, and coming here, it's exactly what you're saying. What you're both saying. people put it in my head, both as a woman, they're like, they're going to be misogynistic, and the race, they're like, if you go out now, I have a friend who grew up in the South, going off of the Morgan Wallen story, who's white, and she actually was the minority in an all black school down here in the South, and she's like, people just called each other that white between black as a term of endearment, right? Which I think goes off the Morgan Wallen thing. But people put it in my head about the race thing too. They're like, if you go, I'm like, I don't know. Like Nashville seems like a pretty cool melting pot, like what I'm used to. And they're like, oh no, you go 10, 15 minutes, it's a different world. So between that, the woman thing, it's like now I'm actively looking out for it. It's like now they're putting it in my head.
It never was on your radar before. You like
how much does that help or hurt us?
She didn't even think about. It's just my dad. It's if people put things in your head, then it's going to become bigger than what it really is.
Yep, exactly. Before we wrap, given that my show is called Cancel Me Baby and I love getting into all these issues, I feel like we're coming kind of at a breaking point now. I've been talking about all this. My show turns 3. So now thank you. Everyone's kind of coming around to it now. They're like, cancel culture is bad. I'm like, where have you been for the last 3 years? It's fine. I've only been saying this. But I feel like now it's kind of coming to a head, and people are like, it's not a real thing anymore. No one gives a shit. People don't care about cancel culture. I want both of your opinion, because I would beg to differ. I think my Blake Shelton story is a perfect example of that, of me having a totally fair and he's like, what's with the divide? Like nothing crazy. He's like, can't we all have a beer and get along? I'm like, me too. Yet they don't want that out there because they got to protect the image, right?
Blake,
you were a publicist.
Blake in real life is totally politically incorrect.
That's what I love. Like, I was like, let's do this. And we're at his bar. We're like backstage behind his bar having beers. So I'm like, it's perfect.
Shelton.
Totally. So with that, even with that example, it's like, I can't believe we're at a place where I think in country music and not, it's very much still protected and people walking on eggshells.
It's fear. And when you have fear as a basis of anything, especially fear in the basis of a creative world, you're not even going to have success. Because if you're afraid of anything that you say, how can you possibly be creative? How?
No, you can't.
If everybody is boxing you in, you have to be safe, you have to be vanilla, you can't speak what you really think, then how are we going to have all different kinds of things for all different kinds of people to like? Isn't that what music's all about? You're supposed to be hearing about all these social issues and all these different things so we can all be better people, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and so people can express themselves.
Exactly.
And if they're afraid, and then you have the people with the money that aren't going to back the song to give the marketing to break an artist because you're afraid of XYZ, what's going to happen to all of music, to all of everything? It's actually, I think it's scary.
I do too. I mean, it's the antithesis of freedom. Right. It's not freedom. Where do you both see it going from here? And for you, Rhonda, do you miss, again, like what I would call the Wild West of those days where it's sort 90s. Of like anything goes. And again, people could be like, oh, well, it's not okay back then. But the truth is, again, there was that fun, liberate, right? Fun.
When I was on Music Row in the 90s, I did not know that we were in what I call the golden era of country music, because it was so much fun. I mean, Urban Cowboy had opened the floodgates and all kinds of things were happening. But, there was tons of politics, like there still is. Radio had way too much control.
It's like a different shape shifted.
But I think, at the end of the day, you just have to rock on and do the best that you can. And I still believe if you practice a golden rule and you're nice to people and you be you, you'll have enough. You have enough. And don't be mean. There's no reason to be mean.
No. There's a line. See, that's the thing. Yeah. There's a line of being irreverent, like we're saying, and then just being a flat out bully causing problems. That's not necessary. There's a line.
I don't think you should use, it depends on what kind of artist you are. You can be an artist that your whole platform is political and that's what you want to be about and you want to use that platform to preach or whatever. That's fine. But then don't say that you're not that. Be that.
Well, I have to say, I want to say pleasantly surprised, but not. I was sadly surprised because people were like, oh, you're going to Nashville? You're going to have a blast with country stars and the things. They kind of have this freewheeling, whatever, and especially your vibe and what you talk about. And I have to tell you, I feel like country stars are more guarded and calculated than like Hollywood actors. I thought that was the most they got. So to come here, you know, what do
Yeah,
you
I
think
mean,
of
well,
that?
it's funny because traveling places and stuff, they're like, oh, you're from Nashville, I bet you go to the bar and every country artist is just out and about and drink. They don't, like, they really don't, especially, you know, when they, I was gonna say, when they do and they get drunk and get kicked out or whatever any other person is doing, there's stories about it and everybody knows about it. And like, really, you don't see people out often, you know, and they're saying, you know, you're gonna be hanging out with all these people. You're not. Like, you're not. Like, and they are very guarded, and it's really, they stay at home with their family and, you know, have their fun at home or whatever, or have their own bar in the backyard. I mean, it's really, they're not out there. It's fear. For sure. It's 100% fear. And they might have their circles that they, you know, go to house parties with and stuff. But, I mean, and that's, I don't know Morgan, but bringing it to the Morgan thing, I mean, he went to a few bars and got kicked out, and that was like the talk of the town for a few weeks was, oh, he, you know, did this and that and the other thing. It's like, just let him.
Also, who cares?
Exactly.
Do we not have bigger fish to fry? Like, literally.
I don't get it. I don't get it. You know, but if he was being mean to people, then he consequences for your actions, buddy.
Well, yeah.
But it didn't seem like that to me. But I don't know the whole story, but I feel like I know pretty much of the story, and I thought it was really blown out of proportion. And I think it's really sad that what you said, people hear one story and then they run with it and they make it bigger than what it needs to be. I don't know. Can we just get back to the music? Period. Yeah, I love his songs. You know, and other people too, you know, like, I don't know. I just, life's short.
Very last thing with that being said, what do you think some of these iconic country stars, perhaps who aren't even around anymore, would make of all of this whole climate of everything we're talking about? Like, if, you know,
Johnny Cash would just flip everybody off. No,
period.
I actually think, you know, this kind of stuff happened way back when. I mean, Waylon and Willie and Johnny all boycotted, you know, radio or the CMAs or whatever at one point in their life because they felt like the establishment wasn't treating them right. You know, Waylon didn't receive awards, and my God, now he's, you know, the king country person. Do you know, like, so I think every generation is kind of like, when I was growing up, my mother was like, oh my God, you know, what's going to happen to you? What's happening to your whole generation? You know, everything's wrong. And now I'm saying that about the younger generation. They don't want to work. You know, I feel like I've turned into my mother. You know what I mean? Like, so I just think everything in moderation, really. But if everybody would be the best they could be and be kind to others, wouldn't this be a better place? You know, I mean, it sounds so trite, but it's true.
Yeah. And I'll leave it at this, you know, off of what you just said. I kind of love it. Even though it like sucks and it's tumultuous, especially now, but even that's what art is always has been about. It's like going up against the man, the establishment, and not caving to it. So I thank you ladies, what you're doing with your business and the message you're putting out, and even like passing on, you know, to the young interns I met who work for you, that mentality of do your thing, be kind, and push up against the man and not let them win, you know, and I think that's really strong and solid. And, you know, I know we are all busy ladies with things to do, so I won't keep you anymore. Yes. But I appreciate both of you and the work that you're doing. And, you know, it's just a few of us, but it takes people and women, I think, like us in this business to kind of turn the ship back around and make art again and make it fun and liberated again, you know?
Yes. Thank you for doing what you do. Good luck to you.
Back at you. And next, this was behind the scenes, Operation Sex Goddess Body with Rhonda, everybody. Can't be
a long time.
No way. Okay, MILF extraordinaire, certified. Thank you, ladies, so much. Can't be canceled at Rhonda & Co. Here we are. Thank you, ladies. Awesome.
Love it.